Okay, so we want to welcome you this afternoon to the RITIS user group quarterly meeting. We're very happy that you could join us. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We again are using Zoom webinar, so you can use your audio through your computer or your phone. We wanted to let you know that this web meeting is being recorded. And if you have questions about the web or audio, you can reach out to Esther. So since this is Zoom webinar, just a reminder that we use the Q&A box to ask questions to the presenters, and then the chat box is for technical issues. When you ask questions, just click on the Q&A and type in your question, and then Matt Glasser, our co-host for today, or Denise will be reviewing those questions, and if there's time after each presentation, we'll answer them then. If not, we'll wait till the end of the meeting. You may also ask questions verbally. If you'd like to do so, you just indicate by raising your hand and we will unmute your line so that you can ask that question. Or at the end during the agency input session, that could be helpful. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Denise Marco, who is the TSMO director for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Denise.
Thanks, Joanna. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
Welcome everybody to the meeting. I'm very quickly going to give you a coalition update and then turn this over to Matt Glasser, who's going to be a great facilitator today. But just as usual, we quickly give you an update on some of the recent meetings we've had and the upcoming meetings. We had back in June our strategic planning workshop. All three of our programs got together with basically program committee chairs and members of the committee to talk about our work plan. The work plan has been finished and will be up on our website very soon, so you'll be able to see what our folks really want to do this year. We then had in June 15th, a week later, our WAYS biannual working group. This is where we get together, our technical working group gets together with WAYS product and WAYS engineering to talk about some ways they can update and improve their product features. And then we also talk about data integration and how we're getting data to WAYS and how we can improve getting closures and incident data. The third meeting we had was a VPP, or Traffic Data Marketplace. We had our biannual state meeting, and in that we talk about our contracting for this year, as well as the new RFP that's coming out, and some of the validation work that's been done. So those are the three meetings we held in June. The upcoming meetings that we have for this month, August and September, and even into October, we do have, we received 16 proposals for the new Traffic Data Marketplace. So we're putting together teams in place to evaluate the data sets. And we have 2 kickoff meetings with those teams once they are finalized in August, the 17th and the 18th. The data-driven webinar that's coming up, it's called Best Practices for Conflation Data Sets or Conflation Services. This is going to be a technical meeting requested by some of the states. Hopefully they will forward this invite to their GIS folks, talk about some of the best practices and lessons learned. PennDOT's going to be talking about their conflation methodology. Ohio DOT is doing the same thing. And then we have the CEO from Citygate GIS who's going to come in and also talk about conflation. So it's a technical webinar. I do caution you on that regard, but again, it's something that our members asked about doing. We have a Trav Info web meeting. We've invited the Work Zone Data Exchange team to come in on September 9th. It's a tentative. I heard from them today. I believe this is going to be set up in the morning to really go over what that whole exchange project is and where it's at and how it's moving forward. We're then looking at a mapping technical meeting. It's a member invite meeting October 7th. And this is where we're going to get specific members from our DOTs to talk about what problems they have and challenges they have in getting data to mapping companies. The long-term goal is to bring the mapping companies to the table, tell them what we need to have them do, basically. And then the next RITIS user group meeting is in October. So with that being said, that's what's going on in the marketplace, in the coalition right now. And Joanna, I think the next slide, I'm going to turn this over to Matt. There you go. Matt, are you there?
I am. I'm turning on my video. Thanks, Denise. And I'm going to be using Joanna to help advance my slides for me. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Really excited to have you here. As always, I think we have a really great group of folks that are going to be speaking to you, with the exception of me. Unfortunately, you got to hear me speak at some point later on. But, in the meantime, as always, let me just go ahead and take the opportunity to introduce our speakers, many of which you already know, but for the folks that are joining for the first time, and this is your first user group, you get to hear it for the first time. So our first speaker is going to be Mark Franz. He is a doctor, just in case you didn't know, who has earned his BA in physics and BS in astronomy from the University of Florida, his master's from West Virginia University, and his PhD in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Maryland, with an emphasis in transportation engineering. Currently, Mark is the lead transportation analyst at the CATT lab, and which, if you didn't know, is at UMD, where he is developing and improving online transportation analysis tools and visualizations for both public and private sector clients. Our next speaker is going to be Landon Perry, a colleague at Georgia DOT. Landon is currently District 7's pre-construction engineer for GDOT. He is a graduate of Georgia Tech with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. In his current role, Landon manages the following sections for District 7, which is in Metro Atlanta: district design, district right-of-way, along with district planning and programming. Landon is currently overseeing the completion of GDOT's first ever micro-simulation guidance documentation, which will provide guidance to aid in efficient, knowledgeable, and consistent VISM model development. In his free time, Landon enjoys flying drones and working with his family. Next up will be Michael Pack, who I'm sure most of you know. He's a director at the University of CATT Lab. And again, that being at the University of Maryland. He works to make transportation data more easily accessible and usable by operations planners and researchers. He has previously worked at the University of Virginia and the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And finally is John Allen. John Allen serves as a liaison and educator for the CATT Lab at the University of Maryland. John also assists in user experience, user interface development, QA, QC, manages special projects, and aids in developing strategic directions for RITIS and Probe Data Analytics Suite. John also acted as a facilitator for a number of different organizations, including the Eastern Transportation Coalition and the Partners in Using Archived Operations Data. Big mouthful. Let's go on to the next slide here. So very excited as always with the huge group of folks that are attending right now. As we're currently looking, we have 80 attendees, 150 that are, or over 150 that have been registered. So hopefully as this meeting progresses, we'll see a few more folks hop on here and take in some of the great information that our speakers have. Next. And with that, let me go ahead and hand it off to Mark Franz, who will be talking to you about all the work that he's been doing. Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, go through some slides, and then I will jump into a browser to show a demo of the test version of the pie chart tool. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep, we can see it, Mark.
Okay, great. So just as a precursor to this presentation, this is an update on this project where we gave the background on this phase of the project at the last user group meeting. So for those who weren't at that call, just so I'm not coming out of left field here, we're working on developing causes of congestion pie charts at a national level on the entire national highway system, and segregating them by states and counties, and also giving breakdowns by each month. And we're using the year of 2019 for this analysis. So today's purpose is to just give an update on the progress that we have. And we have a couple of states fully processed and ingested into a test instance of the tool, which I'm going to be showing some results and giving a demo of. So yeah, focusing on tasks 4 and 7 for today's discussion, and that's the processing of these delay and disruption statistics on the national level. and then the implementation of some of the geographic and temporal improvements that we have in TDADS, which you'll see in the results and when I do the demo. So just a refresher about the general workflow and process for this phase of TDADS, the procurement of the 1-minute data. We have all of that now from NRICS and have it organized in the CATT lab servers and databases, so that part's done. As you'll see today, the geographic and temporal improvements, the interface for that has been completed. So at this point, we're just processing more data, and as we get it done, we're ingesting it into the tool, and we're hoping to have the full tool ready with all 50 states and Washington, D.C. This fall. And once that's done, we'll have another webinar that illustrates the work that we've done and the final product of the tool to a larger group. So I have a demo slide here. This is a screenshot of the tool, but rather than jump in and out of my PowerPoint, I think I'll just show you some of the results on the upcoming slides. And then at the end, I will jump into the demo if that's okay. So I'll come back to the demo in a moment. So thus far, we've processed data from 6 states, and I'm going to be showing samples of that data from all 6 states. But just kind of wanted to walk through a few different ways to slice and dice the data and do different types of investigations. So one of the first states that we got done was Alabama. And what I've done here is within the tool, I took some screenshots of the outputs. As you'll see, you can show these as pie charts and as bar charts. I choose bar charts just because the labeling of the categories is a little bit easier to fit onto the PowerPoint slide. But in any case, this is one sample analysis that could be done at the state level. I'm showing the results for all of the national highway system within Alabama for 2019 on the left. For a 3-month period, like a quarterly report, maybe be the use case here, July through September of 2019, again for the entire national highway system in Alabama, and then just 1 month for the month of August. And you can see that even within the same geography, that when you start to slice and dice the data, you can start to see some differences in the categories based on the temporal period that you're looking at. One nice feature that we've added to the interface in this phase of the project is showing the contribution of each geography to its parent geography. So in this case, the state contribution, the state of Alabama contributed about 3% in each of these time periods to the total US congestion. And we do the same thing at the county level. And I'll show that in an upcoming slide. But this is just one way to slice the data. You can see some minor differences in the percent contributions. For instance, the incidents go from 15 to 17 and then to 13, depending on the time period that you look at. And you'll see that becomes more pronounced when you start looking at different geographies as well. I'll try to illustrate that as I walk through the slides. So another state that we finished, and Matt, I didn't tell you about this. I wanted to surprise you with it, but we have Georgia in the tool. And one request that we had after the first phase of this project, where we just did the state of Maryland and Colorado, was to add the ability to look at things like urban versus rural. So we took a step toward doing that by allowing people to filter the results by counties within a state. So I picked 2 counties here in Georgia, again, looking at the full year of data from 2019. Fulton County, Georgia is the county where downtown Atlanta resides, so major urban area in Georgia. And then Effingham County is a very small rural county on eastern Georgia, as you see on the map with the red county being highlighted. So you can obviously expect to see some pretty major differences when you're looking at an urban versus a rural county. So Fulton County contributes almost 31% of the total congestion in the state of Georgia. It's pretty high for one county, whereas Effingham is a fraction of a percent, 0.1% of all of Georgia's congestion. Within this distribution, you can also look, within each of these counties, look at the distribution differences. The most pronounced, obviously, as you might expect in an urban area, you have recurrent in this particular county near Atlanta, 53%, more than half the congestion is coming from recurrent, just your typical AM, PM peak stuff. You don't see very much of that as you would expect this result, 2% in a rural county, but you see the increase in incidents plus work zones. Those tend to be much smaller compared to the recurrent congestion in the urban area, but still a significant portion. So we're hoping that, again, people can use this tool to do these types of analyses, because I think the underlying cause of congestion is very dependent on the land use and population and those types of things. So we're hoping that we can support the first snapshot of that type of analysis. So then this last slide, sort of just summarizing some of the rules. These are all 6 states that we've processed thus far, and this is all going on as I speak. We're crunching through the numbers, and as states get done, we're going to continue to load them into our interface. So the next time that we meet, I can give more updates. But here's just a comparison looking at different states for the entire year. So we have Alabama, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Maryland, and Texas. Some of these were picked strategically. Other ones were just picked at random. Texas we did because it's a larger state and we wanted to do some stress testing on our algorithms. Kind of the same thing with Florida. Colorado and Maryland were the ones that we did last year, so they served as validation. And then Alabama and Georgia were ones that we selected just at random to include in this. So we can see that Alabama is kind of an interesting case compared to the other ones, where you see all other things being equal, a fairly low amount of recurrent congestion compared to all of the other states, which tend to be somewhere in the 25 to 35 range for that percentage of the contribution to their state. When we started looking at this data, in the whole scheme of things, Alabama doesn't have very large cities, compared to what we think of large cities on the national level as part of the cause. You also notice that the unclassified category tends to be a little bit higher in Alabama than it is in the other states, which tend to be around 5 to 10% is what we've been seeing. When we looked at what might be causing this, so one of the main data sources that we're using for both work zones and incidents is coming from a national Waze data feed. And in our analysis in a previous study, when we look at Waze data, they tend to follow the events and the frequency of events of Waze data follow VMT trends. So, urban versus rural, peak periods versus non-peak periods. And we think that, our initial investigation, we didn't dig way down into the weeds, but that's partially what's causing this unclassified categories. We just don't have great causes of congestion data sources in some of the rural areas of Alabama. And all other things being equal, a greater portion of their state tends to be in the rural category, just because they don't have as big of cities as some of the other states. That being said, those states do have some consistency, but not perfect. So it's still worth certainly breaking these down state by state. And as I illustrated on the last slide, county by county, some of the differences between the categories, and also looking at the contribution of each state to the overall. So keep in mind that these numbers aren't finalized when you see this percentage on this slide, because we only have 6 states in there right now. So we're basing these numbers on the data that we have in hand so far. So these will obviously go down as we add more states to our tool, and we'll bring that to its close to its final number. So I'll jump out just for one moment in the interest of time. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but just want to show the tool itself. So for those of you who have looked at our previous years, we just had Maryland, Colorado. Now we're going to have all the states. So I have Alabama here, and what I can do is look at a full year. I can look at a single month if I wanted to, and things will update on the map accordingly. And I can also look at a custom range of months. So if I wanted to, January through March, the first quarter of 2019, I can do that, and everything will sort of update. And I can, switch between the pie chart view and the bar chart view. And if I click on any one of these categories, if I click on incident, what it'll do is it's going to show me the trend for those months that I have selected. So I selected January through March. I clicked on the incident category, then it shows me the user delay cost for that category within the 3 months that I have. In addition to the county and custom drill down on temporal portions, you can also look at counties. So by clicking on that county button, it shows me an exhaustive list of all the counties that are within Alabama. I'm going to switch back to the pie chart view just because it uses the real estate a little bit better on my screen. And I can unclick the category, and you can search through the counties within the state, either by scrolling or by sorting them by by the percent of, let's say, recurrent congestion, and it'll resort them based on that filtering parameter that you set. And then you can still scroll through and look all of them. So what we did here is we locked in the position of the national pie chart on the left. The state that you've selected is the middle column, and then the county is on the right. And the idea is that you can look at if there's similarities and differences in the distribution. And then we're also supplementing, again, with the contribution of that state to its parent, or that geography to its parent geography. So this is representative. 1.6% of congestion in Alabama came from Etowah County, Alabama, and then so forth. And eventually we'll build up to the full national pie chart, which will be there once all the states and Washington, D.C. have been processed. So in terms of next steps for this project, as I mentioned, we're going to continue to process the data for the rest of the states and counties and get them ingested and integrate this into the online interface. What I showed you just now is a test instance, but that'll eventually become available on RITIS this fall, so you can see all of the data. You'll have access to that as RITIS users. And we're working on, part of this project is to develop the requirements for the deep dive tool. So allowing people, coming up with a scope for drilling down the specific road segments and custom date ranges is something that we're going to be working on. And then finally, once it's all complete, conduct this national webinar that I mentioned earlier to show the final results for all the states. That's all that I had. My contact information is here. If there's any further questions or comments that you have, I'm welcome to take them. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mark. And it sounds like it looks like we already have a few questions for you in the chat box. If you'd like, you can pull those up, or I can read them off to you.
Yeah, I just pulled them up. First one is from Alan, and if we run out of time and I need to answer these through the chat box, just let me know, Matt. But I'll start with them. So from Alan, do you see any trends between the amount of recurrent congestion and the rate of growth for urban area? That's a good suggestion. We haven't looked at any differences in the change in the urban areas yet, but I think that that's a natural next step for this, is once we have those results, to see if there's any correlation with other factors like the change in the urban area sizes and usage and things like that. Next question is from Andrew Ludasi, and his question is, where do you get the weather data? And if you have it, we would like to match it, and also construction with the PM3 LOTTR and TTTR values. So our weather data we're getting from conflated radar weather. So we're essentially taking the 2-minute radar data from NOAA, and we're mapping that to the road segment. So far, we're just doing that for the national highway system, but we're hoping to support that more widespread throughout RITIS. So that's where we're getting that. And then the construction data, because we had to choose a national data set for this, I know that some of the states participating in RITIS provide that, but we needed to have a comprehensive list. So we used Waze data for work zones as well as incidents. Another question about how is contribution of signals to congestion quantified. So I won't go into the details here. We could have a follow-up question, but we essentially used the locations of signals from OpenStreetMap. Again, we needed a national data set to do this, and we've identified all of the approaching TMCs to a traffic signal, and assigned if there's the head of the bottleneck location occurs on that approach at the signalized intersection, then we assigned that to the category of signalized intersections. And we have some ideas on how we can drill into that a little bit more, which I won't go into detail, but yeah, that's sort of how we're doing it right now.
And Mark, I think maybe this last question from Russell, you, I guess, answer it over this, and then the next one for Ross, let's maybe move just to regular chat.
Sure. So last question I'll answer then orally here will be from Russell, and then Ross, I'll get to you on the chat box. But I guess this might be more of a comment. It's great to, Russell says it's great to see the analysis breakdowns, especially in state and county comparisons. That is always what we've been desired missing since the US pie chart was first issued years ago. Yeah, so we're glad to hear that, Russell. Thanks for the comment. And that's obviously one of the objectives that we wanted to do, is to allow people to drill down to their specific area of interest and do some comparisons on that. So we appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Mark. And I guess with that, we'll go ahead and advance. I believe we're on to Landon here. Landon, I think you might want to be sharing your screen. If not, we can have Joanna share it if you'd like.
Yeah, Mark, I think you're gonna have to stop sharing your screen right now.
Yes, man, I'm prepared to share. So yeah, let me see now. Will I be allowed to share my screen? Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Hold on. Okay. My name is Landon Perry. I know on the screen that it says State Traffic Operations Manager. This was recently the case, but I recently received a promotion to the District 7 Pre-Construction Engineer. So disregard that. I'm going to be giving you a presentation today. I'm entitled Ranking Intersections in Georgia Using RITIS. So just to give you an update on basically what we're doing here. The Operational Improvement Program is a dually funded program funded by both the state government as well as the federal government, with an annual budget of $30 million a year. 12 million can be contributed from the federal government, and 18 million being given by the state by way of House Bill 170. Typically, our projects are those type of intersection optimization type projects where we're optimizing the footprint. We're installing turn lane extensions. We're installing possibly even any type of roundabout alternative intersection design. And the key thing that makes our program, well, one of the features that makes it so successful is the fact that we can deliver projects through various means, projects up under $200,000 up into projects over several $1 million. This is good because this allows us to take advantage of many of the delivery mechanisms found within our plan development process. So our program is one of those programs within the department that many local agencies, stakeholders, as well as other programs within our department typically try to come to the ops program for possible funding to get projects pushed through. So to give you an example of the types of projects that we typically do, this is State Route 53 and State Route 369. This is a junction up in District 1. At this location here, we have been receiving complaints not only from local stakeholders, but also from the district. So what we decided to do was to go in and pull the data from RITIS and utilizing the probe data to see if there was really a problem that was existing here. The data that we were able to pull from RITIS showed that there was an existing problem here, which was allowed us to virtually corroborate what was being stated from our stakeholders. After reviewing the data, we saw what the problem was, and we decided to optimize the footprint by doing what you see here. We were able to remove a portion of the existing raised median in both the eastbound and westbound directions to provide some additional room for us to be able to put in dual lefts in both the eastbound and westbound directions, in addition to lengthening the northbound dual left turn lanes as well. By doing so, we were able to improve operations by minimizing delay, as well as maximizing throughput, and doing so all within the existing right-of-way footprint. So one of the key things about our program is we know we're working with a finite budget, $30 million. So the key thing that we use to prioritize our program for our finances is going to be our operational BC. This operational BC is going to be based upon our user delay cost. So what we do is once we go out and actually collect counts, and we do what we call a no-bill model. We do a no-bill model in Synchro or Sidra or Vism, depending on what's going on in the particular area. Once we're able to do that, we'll come up with an overall user delay cost. Then we ask ourselves the question, how long will this countermeasure be able to last? So that now typically for most of our projects it's 20 years, but sometimes our projects act as band-aids for future projects coming down the line. So then we will have to discount our overall life cycle costs of our overall project. But then overall it's based upon the overall cost that GDOT is going to be expending for that particular project. So once we go in, we model the project, we figure out what does the existing level of delay look like for both our passenger vehicles as well as our trucks. And then once we settle upon what we think the final solution should be, we will run that model again with the final footprint. And the differences between delay experienced during the existing condition versus that which is being proposed in the proposed condition, that difference divided by the overall cost gives us our benefit cost ratio for that particular project or that particular concept. So that when I go ready to go present it to upper management, we'll have somewhat of an internal metric that we can use to determine what priority this project should rank within our overall process. Now, one of the key things about this bottleneck input screen that we like was it allowed us to break down our areas, because once again, we have to report not only to management, we have to report to our stakeholders, as well as people working in the local municipalities as well. One of the key things we like to take advantage of is the district feature, our roadway classification feature, and I want to bring special attention to the actual date and time period that we analyze. Typically, within the OPS program, we'd like to pull data from in the months of February and March due to the correction factor associated with pulling traffic factors in those months. We feel as though those months are typically the most normal that we would typically see, and we won't have to apply any type of correction factors, mostly with those months of February and March. And we'll also have the ability to pick which probe set data that we typically want to use, but within our program, we normally are using the HERE data set. Now, with the outputs with regards to the RITIS data network that we're utilizing, base impact is key, as well as total delay is key. Base impact, as many of you are aware of, it takes into consideration the overall length, the overall queue length per approach associated for the TMCs. The only problem with that is it's weighing those intersections that have a smaller typical, those links who have a smaller typical section, possibly of 2 lanes, the same way we would be ranking those intersections, those TMC nodes that have 3 lane sections, so to speak. So that's not an apples to apples comparison. So typically what we like to do, we like to focus on those links that have volume, because that volume allows us to be able to, for all intents and purposes, normalize our data. And as you can see, there's a difference between our base impact metric and our total delay impact metric. That volume data really helps us to be able to normalize our data. So whenever we're pulling data, the vast majority, last time I checked, 70% of the links found within RITIS in the state of Georgia has the volume component associated with it. The remaining 25% does not. So we rank them separately. We'll have those TMC links that have total delay metric. We also are aware of those links that do not have that total delay volume metric. Once we have that information, we will then export the data out and do our on-system filtering. We'll go through and we'll filter those links that are contribute to the nodes of on-system route intersection. To bring it to your attention, there are several things that we do exclude. We exclude those areas that are not on system, and we also exclude those merge and diverge points from freeway mainline ramps as well. So with our TMC codes, once everything is completed and the aggregation is done, we are aware that with RITIS, it's going on an approach basis. So once we export the data out, we're able to kind of geolocate where the TMCs are located in relation to an overall intersection. So once we pinpoint those down, we're able to determine which TMCs are attributed to which intersection. This is done in our post-processing data. Once we're able to do that, all the links that you see on the screen or the TMCs that you see on the screen, we're able to aggregate them and have them to be a part of what we quote unquote call our intersection ranking. And once we're able to do that, we're able to see what you have on the screen here thus far. We're able to rank every intersection that has a TMC link that's on system and that's geared toward us. What you're seeing on the screen here is an example of our RITIS dashboard, which I'll show you later once I finish my presentation. This is over the entire state. But what's key to it is we have the ability to once again, to sort and utilize numerous features such as the districts that you see here, intersections or interchanges. And what's good about this is typically within our program, we have a meeting once a week with our district representatives, and it allows us to communicate with them and talk with them because they too have to report back to their locals and the stakeholders within their district. And it's able to us to allow them to know what particular intersection that we're seeing on our end are particular problems and some of the things that they may want to talk to their management about with regards to funding in several upcoming years. on the next screen, you will see us. This is an example of us breaking it down by district. This is District 7 here. So as you can see, we rank the vast majority of all the intersections in the metro Atlanta area, which covers District 7. And this is an example here of an actual of a local municipality in the city of Alpharetta. Once again, like I told you today, thus far, we've ranked about 4,800 intersections. Of those, 75% have the total delay component, which includes the volume as well. And we've screened about 750 locations. When I say screened, that means that although we have them ranked, the district has verbally communicated with us on approximately 750 of those intersections. And with those 750 intersections, we have taken to the next step by going about doing our no-bill screening. And what our no-bill screening consists of is us reviewing the data, going out and collecting counts, and building models to these intersections to determine whether or not they will be a good fit for the ops program, and if so, where would they rank in the grand scheme of things. When the result right here now says X projects, that number is, when I say it's unknown, I put the X number, that those projects are continually going to the ops committee. To date right now, we have 5 projects that are currently in program via the ops program, and we have another another meeting scheduled up for management in August to bring 12 other proposed concepts, which hopefully will get passed and be presented and will be programmed as projects within GDOT. One of the key benefits of doing things this way is that fact that it's data backed, and it's good being data backed because the simple fact is we're working with a finite amount of money, and the more tools that we have at our disposal to help us make the best decisions for taxpayer dollars to help improve our infrastructure, the better. It also allows us a way of being proactive. I always say being proactive promotes productivity. When we're proactive, it gives us the idea that we're doing things the right way, and also it allows us to plan for future problems that we may have. In addition, it allows us to prioritize our requests. In the ops program, we're constantly being hit up for ideas on possible funding, whether it's from various offices within GDOT, whether it's from local municipalities, or whether it's from other groups as well. So when we get those types of requests in, it's good to have a tool like this so we can actually prioritize it. And once again, the priorities are backed on data. So some additional features that we hope they get from this is we want to be able to do before and after studies. So once a project is programmed and we begin to do the design work and it's become constructed and it's lit, hopefully our plan is to go back in and review the data to see how the countermeasures that we've implemented from a geometric perspective, how have they affected the delay moving forward in the future. This will allow us to have some annual updates as well as some metrics to be able to present to our Operation Improvement Committee team, which consists of our upper management members. And it'll also give us an opportunity to be able to tweak our process for the better if we find as though that there are possible problems in our analyzation method. It's at this time I want to open it up for questions and answers, but I also want to be able to show you all a copy of our dashboard. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is a copy of our dashboard. If I was to deselect everything on the screen now, I'm able to go in and let's say if I want to come in on District 1, this is District 1 located in Northeast Georgia. I can come in here, I can select District 1, and it'll have every intersection ranked within District 1. And these are some of the tools. Once again, this will be that dashboard that I would use to speak with the district. So if I'm meeting with someone from a local county, I'm able to come in and utilize the drop-down method. And this is Clark County, the city of Athens. I'll be able to come in here and pick out all the intersections that they have ranked here in the city of Athens, also telling them their district ranking as well. But it's just a good tool that we can have to communicate back and forth, not only with our ops team and our consultants, but with our stakeholders as well. It's at this time, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it back over to anyone for a Q&A session.
Thanks, Landon. Really appreciate that. We have a few questions in the Q&A. If you want to pull that up, you can. I'm happy to read them off to you if you'd like, or you can take the lead on answering them yourself.
Matt, if you can, I'm going to put the Q&A screen. If you could read them off, Matt, it would be better for me. I'm not familiar with the Zoom platform.
Sure.
I am with Microsoft Teams.
Sure. So the first question was, did you use the leading TMC of a bottleneck only, or all TMCs included in a bottleneck segment?
All TMCs included in a bottleneck segment.
Okay. And then the next one was, and if I didn't miss it when you were explaining it either, did you use subsegment TMC granularity of INRIX data, or was it full TMC granularity for here?
For mine, Repeat that question one more time, Matthew. I'm sorry.
So yeah, sure. So what Nathan Webster had asked was, hi Landon, if I didn't miss it when you explained earlier, did you use sub TMC granularity of the NRIX data for your analysis?
No.
No, you guys are using here, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Another question that came in was, is this dashboard for internal GDOT use or is it open for the public?
Currently, right now, it's for internal GDOT use. However, we can, if needs be, we can speak offline. And I'll
Yeah,
make
I mean, yeah, no, I think it's really just a question of whether or not you guys have any intention of letting the public see this in the future, or is this something that you share with your stakeholders at a meeting and allow them to have access to it as well?
This is something that is mainly utilized by our internal GDOT staff, not only at TMC, but in the districts as well. No one outside of TMC, no one outside of GDOT has actually been using this outside of our consultants at this moment in time. If that changes in the future, we'll definitely let the coalition know.
Sure. Another question that just came in the chat was, do you distinguish between signalized and non-signalized intersection bottlenecks and bottlenecks at highway merge ramp locations?
So we do not deal with highway merge locations, but we also take into consideration not only signalized intersections, but non-signalized intersections as well.
Okay. Well, folks, if you have more questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A box, and we'll have Landon answer those as they come in. With that, Joanna, I think I'm going to have you pull up my slides because I believe I'm next, and you had the most recent version of my slides. Perfect. So I get the privilege of giving you guys a quick update for the RITIS Enhancement Working Group. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, I'm just going to go through a brief history of where we are and what the whole purpose of that was. So if you would, Joanna, let's go on to the next slide. So again, just the idea behind this is that we wanted to form a nimble pooled fund like group to fund RITIS enhancements. And then if we didn't have any money or ran out of money, help the CATT lab prioritize those efforts for enhancements that we feel like are needed by all the states. Ultimately, this is to provide stabilized annual funding for the CATT lab so that they can better program their staff, as needed. And then the last part of this was really just to make sure that we're connecting agencies with similar needs. What we have seen in the past was that through these different user groups that we've done, that the different states kind of reach out and say, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. It'd be great if we could do something else with it. And so we wanted to create a forum by which that we could make those connections work harder for all of us. And I think if you're familiar with regular pooled funds, when we say that nimble approach, the idea really is to be moving quick. The operations world doesn't particularly like projects that take 2, 3, and 4 years to complete. We needed results quickly so that we could start acting on them. And so that was what we felt like we really could gain out of working both through the Eastern Transportation Coalition as well as the University of Maryland's CATT lab and moving this forward. So let's move on and kind of catch you guys up with where we are. And again, these grayed out areas I won't spend too much time on. That's where we've been. But really, since our last meeting, we've had a whole slew of things that have happened. First of which, back in April, was we took the presentation of the initial estimates from what Michael Pack and his team had put together over the summer and said to our group, hey guys, this is what we think it's going to cost for each one of these individual things. Let people, take that back, digest it a little bit, noodle on it, and share it with the rest of their teams. And we came back a few weeks later and started voting on those proposals. And those votes were taken from everybody that was interested in participating in that pooled fund, whether or not they actually had the funding at that point. And the idea really was for the states that did believe they were going to have funding to get a good feel for how the rest of the industry was, where they felt like they were going, and just, again, to provide that collaborative spirit. And then in June, having gotten those votes in, the agencies that were able to contribute money voted. They most certainly took into account the votes that the other states had put forward. and made their selection. So I kind of want to share with you what it looks, what that all look like. And if you would, yep, here we go. So with those 24 different ideas that we had out there, we had everyone prioritize their votes, telling us what's your highest priority, what's your second highest priority, so on and so forth, and put all those together so that we could get a good visual of it. And you can see over here on the left, the different agencies that participated in this. So again, thank you all that participated, and an even bigger thank you to the states that were able to contribute. The biggest thank you going to Virginia DOT, who raised their hands and said, hey, we actually found a pretty sizable chunk of money that we're willing to contribute. And without them, and honestly, without the rest of the states, we wouldn't be able to tell you where we are right now. So you can see on this chart, the two top ones that came up were the advanced road selection and number one being the customizable causes of congestion pie chart. That pie chart that Mark and his team were talking about earlier in this presentation. So if you would go on to the next slide. And so because of that money that was raised and because of the high need, that user group voted up and said, hey, we want to take those cause of congestion pie charts, the work that the CATT lab has already done, the work that the Bureau of Transportation Statistics has already sponsored, and we want to build on that. We want to make this even better for all of us, and we want to see this get down to that road level cause of congestion pie chart. Let's just keep pushing this harder. And because of the overall cost of this is going to be much harder for a single state to build on their own, to find that $300,000. So we're really excited about that. We've already gotten that kicked off. Oregon has already, given their thumbs up and gotten their funding in, for example. And I think that's allowed Michael and his team to just, kick it into gear and start going. And from our understanding, I think, and Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have we're looking at a year before that final build out is complete. So, come next fiscal year, we're all going to have this available to us. If you're using RITIS, it'll be available. And again, that's really exciting and shows the true power of states collaborating on this type of stuff, as well as really building on the successes of other contributors. If you would go on the next slide. But it wasn't just that. And this is the second and third part of why we got this pooled fund together. So, we tapped out all of our money to pay for that enhancement, that $300,000 enhancement for the cause of congestion pie chart. But in the process of doing that, a few states, that were going back and talking about it internally said, well, hey, I can't really contribute to the pooled fund because I have money that is very limited in scope. I can only spend it on specific things, but I'm really interested in helping. And so with that, we actually got 2 more items that we're able to get, and those were high priority items. So if you would go to the next slide. And this first one was the various ways enhancements. And this, very excited about this as well, was to take the power of ways that we already have and start building in to better sorting capabilities, getting those put on to the data query tool that maps it all out. Very excited about that. And I know from the safety standpoint, that's been a big ask for many years. I can certainly say that I was one of them. And then our next one, if you will, is the corridor speed graphs. So again, very excited about this. That was able to be picked off by Georgia DOT. Both of those were, but again, that kind of came through that horse trading that happened on the back end with folks being interested in what was going on. And so these 2 extra items that we were able to get out of the RITIS enhancement user group and through that collaboration, again, I think that those are also in the queue to be built this year. I think that we're working through the details with, GDOT's working through the details right now with CATT Lab on finalizing that agreement. So I don't need my animations. We can kind of skip through those, move on to the next part of this. So before I hand it off to John, I do want to give the shout out to all the participating agencies, both the ones that that were able to contribute money, as well as the ones that just participated this first go around. I know that there were plenty of questions and, hand wringing about how this might work. And I think that what we can say and say so with big success is that, yes, we did go fast. We made the promise of being nimble, moving quickly, making decisions, not dragging this out. And the fact that we made this, got this all together and made decisions as multiple government agencies in the span of about a month and a half is a testament to what we're talking about. I think it's also a big testament to that horse trading, to the collaboration that's happening in the back rooms as these are happening and as these meetings are happening. So again, I'm very excited about the progress of this. And if you're interested in joining us for these future RITIS enhancements, please feel free to reach out to Denise or myself, and we'll get you added to those future meetings as they come up. So take a breath here. So, Mark responded to Ross, but you can see that question that you had earlier about TDADS, this is exactly where that's going. And this is, the timeline that we're looking at is within a year. So again, very excited about the hard work that was paid for by the Transportation Bureau of Statistics. What we're doing would not be possible without them, having done the upfront legwork, and then obviously the CATT Lab having built all this to make that vision come true.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
This is Denise Marco, real quick. One other piece of information that I need to make sure we add on to this. The coalition was the group that actually got the grant from BTS to be able to do this work. So pieces of this project, phase 1 and phase 2, which was building the state-specific congestion pie chart along with by county, which was sponsored and funded by BTS, is for lack of a better term, it's a free tool. It's a tool that tool is available to everybody on a national level once it's developed. The deep dive analytics, which is where you want to get in deeper to the corridors, that's going to be built as part of the PDA suite, which in using RITIS, you'll get access to. So I just wanted to make sure people knew there's a difference there between what I'm terming phase 1 and phase 2, state specific, along with counties, and then getting into the deep dive. There's a difference in access there right now. Okay.
Appreciate that, Denise. Thanks for that clarification.
Sure.
So again, for everyone that's on here, that RITIS enhancement user group is open to government agency officials. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out to Denise or myself. We'll be happy to get you connected with the rest of us. And with that, I think we're on to John Allen. I think you're next up.
Thanks, Matt. Doing a sound check. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Cool. All right, let me see if I can share my screen. Looks like I can. And can you see my screen okay?
Not yet, John.
Okay, let's try that again.
See a bunch of lanterns.
Okay, well, that's right then. Let me just get this. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, we good?
Yep, you look good, John.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to just give you some updates on the performance reporting templates work we've been doing at the CATT Lab and with reporting working groups that we have. So let's get right into it. The first thing is a template matrix. Denise Markow and I were talking last month, I guess, and one of the things she asked me to do was put together a matrix that kind of organizes the information about the different templates we have available and who's going to be using them. So we put this first cut matrix together that basically just shows the disciplines who will be using these various templates, and it'll help folks choose the right template for the job. What we want to do is, as I said, it's a first cut, enhance this a little bit. So for example, we may want to add some use cases or some better descriptions about the different templates we have there. And eventually we see this being added to, once it's finalized and made the best it can be, to our RITIS templates page in some way, shape, or form. So that'll help folks when they get to that page to decide which template is best for my particular situation. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was a meeting had last month with the complete team. Now, some of you may know the complete team is a planning operations collaborative that was started in New Jersey at NJDOT. It involves about 12 different agencies and organizations in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area. And NJIT and the CATT Lab are part of that group too. So the impetus for that group was, hey, we hardly have any money for congestion relief programs and projects. Let's start working together, both from a planning and an operations perspective, so we can get the best projects out there that address both of our needs and are cost effective too, and also try to address the congestion and mobility aspects of the entire region. So that was the idea there. So what we did was to share with them an event summary report that we had put together at the request of Matt Glasser. And I stepped through the process of actually building that summary report. It was presented at the last meeting. I'm going to show you an example of the results of that in a second, but we stepped through this roadmap, so to speak, of taking Matt's slide deck, and he said, John, could you turn this thing into a summary report for us? So it included some information from their operations folks, maybe some operators notes, some RITIS results that they had done running congestion scan and performance charts. So I had all that in my pocket. Went out into the web, gathered some information about the incident itself, a location map, and ran some additional PDA suite tools such as UDC, user delay cost, and trend map, just to have that with me too, in case I decide to add those or supplement the report with those results. Then I took one of the RITIS incident timeline templates we have already as a base, and then took all that information and added it into that template, make it fit based upon the information I have, and created basically two different timeline options. One was what we call a dual purpose timeline, which is very cool. I'll show you that example in a second. And the second was a traffic incident management timeline, which is based off of the FHWA Office of Operations Gap Analysis Primer that you're probably familiar with. So this is what we came up with as a final product. And I stepped through this thing pretty detailed with the group so that they understood how it's done from soup to nuts, not just showing what that timeline, but actually showing the information that I had, how I all put it together, how we ran the different tools and came up with the results, and how those results fit into this report. So you can see there's a basic summary header, the location map, some summary information about what happened and when it happened and what were the impacts of that. And then this timeline, which was developed by GDOT and is very cool in that not only does it show the timeline detail for managing the incident itself, but it shows you the impacts of the roadway section that was looked at. In this case, the speed reductions that were occurring because of that incident. And you could also supplement it with other things too, like maybe travel time or the queuing or whatever. So it's a really great way to show this information in a dual purpose way. It saves little real estate on the form. And I think it just makes a very compelling graphic. And then there's some timeline detail there that's color coded at key locations to the timeline itself. And then the traffic impact with a compelling image of the traffic all stopped for a couple of hours while I investigate this pedestrian hit and run. So that was the front page. And then on the flip side, or as a page 2, you can look at or put on here some additional impact information relative to the road. So you can see there's a performance chart that compares the speeds for the average of the year versus this particular day. And you can see the significant drop on the speeds and how long that particular incident impacted the speeds on that particular link. And then the congestion scan showing the day of the incident versus the Monday before and the Monday after. And this is a good graphic and visual because you can see the extent of the backups and the duration of the time the road was closed and how long it took for the accident to clear and get back to normal conditions. Then there was just a travel time trip graphic grabbed from the media to show the great disparity of some of the travel times there in the area. And then finally, some ATMS information from GDOT showing the secondary incidents along the I-75 corridor. The red dot represents the accident location. And you can see at the back of the queues, you get those secondary incidents very typically happening there. So a lot of times folks say, well, how long does it take to create these things? It seems like a lot of work, and it's really not. To assemble all the information took about an hour. I wasn't timing myself on all this, but I ballparked it. And I'll show you an easier way to grab all that RITIS information that's very time effective in a second. But creating that front page was about 3 hours and 2 hours for the back page. So in less than a day's time, you can create this report from the information that I had on hand, plus developed and grabbed from the web. And this time included developing that dual purpose timeline. What I had to work with was just a JPEG. So I had to recreate it in PowerPoint. I'll show you that in a second. And also developed a TIM timeline and did some additional PDA runs just in case I needed those. So very quick and easy to do, relatively speaking, taking this information and putting it into the template and coming up with a professional looking report that really tells a good story and is clear and informative, we think. So from that work, we developed some new how-to and design resources for our RITIS templates page. This is how we can make the dual purpose timeline using PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through every of the 6 steps here, but it's pretty straightforward about, you start out with creating this basic arrow and you end up with the incident timeline that looks like that at the bottom there. It's easy to do if you step through this process and understand it. And once you get a basic understanding, we develop what we call the design sheets. And these are like big graphical representations of, in this example, the incident timeline. It's all editable, so you can just take this as opposed to working through the step-by-step process in PowerPoint and edit this right on this particular sheet. So for example, you could change the colors depending on what the speed differentials were. You have the times up there. You can take these little call outs where it says incident recurred and police notified, add them to your timeline, adjust it, and then all you do is have to copy and paste it into your report. Makes it a little bit faster. And then for the TIM element timeline, we developed this design sheet. So again, it's all editable. You can add in your information in here, change it around, change the size of the arrows, whatever you want to that you think tells the story the best way, looks the best in terms of the visuals. And as we walk through this report, I'm always reminded of 2 things that I like to tell folks. One is always save your TMC sets. A lot of times, even in a simple situation like this, where you have a segment of roadway, it's always very helpful and quick and easy to save your TMC set for later. So all you do is you choose your road, and it's a partial section of I-75. And then you come down here and you say, save the TMC set. And you save it, you name it, and you click this box here, which allows users within your agency to also access that segment set. So if they wanted to do some runs or some other different things with that, then they can have access to that and then do it. So you say, for example, if you did a congestion scan, you came back in, you click saved instead of road, and then you come over here under display options, click the show only my segment sets. So that'll window it down to what you've created. And you just look on the list here and find it, click it, and then it comes up. So really it's only like 3 clicks and you can get to that segment. Now, it's handy for that, but it's really handy if you have a long section of roadway, a couple of roadways, a network of roadways. You could just bring that TMC set right back up and then go. It saves a tremendous amount of time. The other thing is using my history. When you open up PDA suite. In the upper right-hand corner next to the welcome message, you'll see my history. If you click on that, it's going to give you all the runs that you have done using the different tools at PDA suite for as long as you've been using them. So in this case, when I started to grab up all the information to help me out with it, I ran I-75 congestion scan. Once those results were available, I clicked on open with, and then down here you get this open with dialog box, and all you have to do is click, 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 and it'll run these tools in the background and give you the results based upon your settings that you had set in the original congestion scan run. So it's really fast and easy to get additional runs without doing too much work. It's one single click per tool. Recently, Rick Ayers, who's a public sector advocate at CATT Lab, did a dog and pony at MassDOT to talk about some before and after evaluation for accidents and incidents. And he stepped through the process and came up with a nice template or performance summary report for a high-speed accident that occurred on I-290 in Massachusetts. And they liked it so much, they said, hey, Rick, could you do something for this truck bridge strike that happened as well? So Rick did that, and he came up with this event summary. So just to walk you through it again, you have the header, you have an incident location map, and I'll call this a soundbite bar up top here where you have just a summary of what happened, when it occurred, a flatbed truck hit the bridge, what happened to the roadway, the lanes were closed in the southbound direction of I-95 for 2 hours, who responded to the incident. So just a quick summary up top here of the incident itself. Then on the left side, there's several images of showing what happened exactly. To the truck, a piece of the equipment fell off, blocked that lane. The state troopers arrived to take control of the scene. There were some injuries, traffic backed up. Now this isn't a finalized, so some of these images and texts and captions are placeholders right now, but it's pretty close to finalized. Then on the right side is all the performance impacts to the network and to the roadway itself. So on the bottom, you can see there was an increase in travel time on the alternate routes. Vehicle hours of delay were significantly increased, and the cost of delay was high compared to normal Tuesdays. But the real cool thing about this summary report that Rick put together, was this trend map. So it shows you the day of the incident versus all the other Tuesdays in the month of June, and how it greatly affected the roadways of 95, Route 3, etc. But what's very cool about this is hyperlinked to an actual trend map that's animated. And you can, if you just went up here, you can click on that and it would take you and load that. I'm not going to do it right now. If we have time at the end, I'll come back to that. But it's very cool. So if you're making a presentation and you click on that, you can load up this trend map, go through it for the whole day, just look at the hours that were impacted, watch the roads change in terms of their performance due to the accident. It's a very compelling interactive graphic that you can share with folks in a meeting or in a presentation. So if you wanted to instead send it to folks and say, hey, we put together this report and here's some information about how to use that trend map there. We put together this quick start guide. So it goes soup to nuts for all the controls and how to use the different maps and the screens and how to click on the roads to cut these little pop-ups, how to lock them in place, run the animation so you can watch the roadway segments change over time in terms of the performance. So it's a good way to help share that information to other folks, colleagues, or even management, and they can look at this in a couple of minutes and understand how to use the tool. And it's fun and it's interactive and it tells a good story. So next I wanted to talk a little bit about our working group. We're going to be meeting sometime after the summer to review some new materials that I've been working on, maybe to test drive some things that we have available and get some feedback on the latest version of the RITIS templates we've been working on. Charles Latimer and I have met with the developers and we were talking about that the other day. So we'd like to get the group re-engaged and go over some things. And one of the big things we want to do is to help develop a virtual training program for RITIS users, because talking to Denise the other day, we've been doing these kinds of workshops or walkthroughs or tutorials, agency by agency, and it's been great. They've gotten a lot out of it, and it's very effective in communicating with them how to build these things and showing them the ease of building it. But we thought it'd be a good idea to, instead of doing it that way, ask you guys if you would like to have a performance reporting workshop that we can then hit the masses with specific reports or templates that you would like to be informed about or use in the future. So with that, I'm going to ask Esther or Joanna, whoever running the polls, to pop up the polls that we have and see if you'd like to have a workshop, and if so, what we'd like to focus on.
So I believe you guys can select one of the three options, right, Joanna? It's on the screen.
That is correct. You can select one of the three, and this is the first of 2 polls.
In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Or if you saw something that you would like to test drive, there's an agency out there that says, hey, I could really use that for, you know, this project or this situation, let me know and I'll send that to you and give you some assistance on that.
Okay, just another minute and we're going to end this, or not even a minute, another few seconds, we're going to end this poll. All right, looks like we've stopped moving, so we're going to end this poll and we're going to pull up the next one. So John, I believe this gets into which template they'd be most interested in.
That's right. So if you have a particular interest or a performance report that you think you would use a lot and need guidance on that, select away.
Okay, just another few seconds. Get those last votes in. Okay, we're going to close the poll now. Thank you very much. I think at this point we are going to hear from Michael.
All right, thanks. So this is the point where we talk about the recent enhancements. We can move on next slide, please. Keep going. So starting out with RITIS, most of what you're going to be seeing in these updates are small but important changes to usability in the tools and some bug fixes as we continue to work on some of these larger enhancements that take much longer that Matt was talking about earlier. So first is we've worked to add some filter naming usability enhancements in the transit pop-ups. So if you're looking at bus or rail lines, there's some improvements that have been made there. And we've also made some improvements to the speed at which these things render, because if you're looking at an entire city and you're trying to draw all of the transit layers and look at all the real-time buses in a particular location, it can take it's a lot of data that has to load all at once and be updated every minute. So we've done some work to try to improve the functionality there. Next. We fixed some labeling where we found a few problems with just wording that could be confusing on the maps. And you'll see this pop up in several places. One is within the events layer pop-ups, so we change it from started to added because nobody really knows when some of these incidents start. In general, this is when they were added to an ATMS system or a lane closure permitting system or something like that. These are, again, small changes, but they're important in understanding of how these data work. Next, please. We have a tool catalog that you can view within RITIS if you're not logged into the system. Kind of steps you through what each tool does and how it works. And then you can go and find some additional information along with some screenshots. And we fixed some formatting issues there that make it easier to look at now. Next. And then for those of you who subscribe to RITIS alerts, there have been a few bugs that have popped up recently. And so we've fixed several issues with the subscription alerts, also with the chat menu for those of you who use the real-time chat, and also the traffic map itself. Next. Moving on to the PDA suite. Next, please. For our friends in Tennessee, your event data is now available in all of the tools that support event data. So that's the real-time RITIS map. It's the various probe data analytics suite tools like the congestion scan, but you also have the bottleneck ranking tool, an event query tool, and of course the alerts that we just talked about. It's available there too. Next. And this was a request that we gotten from several users, but when you're exporting data from the trend map to like an Excel file, now we include a column that have the segments, the TMC segments road name that didn't exist prior. We just had the segment ID and the intersection, but that didn't necessarily include the road name, and that was confusing a lot of folks. Next, please. Performance summaries. For those of you who use this one, when you'd run a performance summary, it gives you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then it rolls up the weekends, the weekdays, and gives you kind of a summary of all the weekdays and the weekends as well. So, that's all been there for a while, but what we do now is if you had requested a date range that was partway through the week, we will now take care of those days prior that were a part of the week as well and include that. All right, next. Silly little stuff here like the agency list and the event count widget and the clearance time widgets are alphabetized. They didn't used to be alphabetized, which I don't know why, but we had to fix that. That was confusing folks who didn't think their agency was listed. Next. And UDC widget can now be resized down half the width of the dashboard. The UDC widget used to take up way more room than it really needed. And seems like a small deal, but it's very difficult to work with the resizing of these widgets. So this took a while to take care of. So now it can be shrunk to a more reasonable size. So when you're creating your customized dashboard, you can tile things appropriately and see more on the screen all at once. Next. And then there's many bug fixes. If you want to see these, a complete list, you can always go to pda.ritis.org/suite/updates. There's a link that's available, like a little flag that pops up. You can click on that as well. We have the same thing in RITIS. We have the same thing in Trips Analytics, and all the other tools have a change log that shows you what's been fixed or updated over time. Next. Now with Trip Analytics, I know there's fewer agencies that are using this particular set of tools, but there are some big changes coming for folks that are using them. We have what we're calling version 4 of Trips Analytics. This is going to allow you to set up study areas and choose different ways to look at your study areas, and instead of what we used to have, which was literally just choosing an origin and a destination or some combination thereof. You can go to the next slide, please. So the new set is the new tool is going to allow you to just go in and say, I want to do some analysis that encompasses all of the data that I can possibly have access to. That's one option. Next, please. There's another option that will be added that will let you select just the base geography of the study. So if you buy data for the state of Maryland, you can look just at things in Maryland, whereas the prior option will let you look at any trip that began anywhere outside of Maryland or ended in Maryland later on. This kind of confines your study area to the state and then shows you all the crossing points going into or out of Maryland. And then the third option, which is on the next slide, is letting you specify your own geography, either through selecting a county or set of counties or cities, or just taking your mouse and drawing some sort of polygon on the screen, and we automatically figure out where all the crossing points are to get into and out of that study area. Next, please. And there's going to be all sorts of ways to define internal and external zones as well. Next. And dividing those up in different ways and turning them on and off as needed. So this is all coming relatively soon, like within, well, a lot of this will be deployed before the next user group meeting. And we'll talk more about it and maybe do some demos next time. For those of you who use this tool, we're going to start off by actually deploying a new tool. So you'll have access to the old one and this new one at the same time. So you can go back and kind of compare features. Eventually they'll get merged into one tool set, but we're going to keep them separate for the time being, just to make it easier for folks to transition between the two, because there is some pretty substantial changes in this, but it's going to enable a lot more diverse analyses moving forward. Next slide, please. All right, and you'll be able to name and save all these study areas as well, so you can go back and redo them over and over again. Next. So that's it for the big updates that we have deployed since last time. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other larger things that we're working on that will be deployed either before the next user group meeting or throughout the next year. And we'll give updates on what those things are at the next meeting as well. So at this point in the presentation, this is where we ask you all to provide us feedback. And, of course, we love praise, but, we are looking for more than that. We need to know what's not working for you. And we also need to know what features you want to have in the tools that aren't there today. And we will then work to prioritize those feature requests and build them out into the system. So at this point, we'd really like you to take a moment to type in things that you are interested in, new feature requests. Take your time, put them in the chat box. If you're not comfortable having them be in a chat box, you can also send them to support@ritis.org. And I will mention that every single one of the enhancements that we're working on right now through the RITIS Enhancement Working Group are things that came to us through this forum and through the support@ritis.org email address. These are all things that you all have requested and voted on. So it's important to get your ideas out there so we know what's needed. And Matt may be able to work his magic and find some funding for some of these things too. You never know.
Yeah, I've got a meeting with Joe Biden here in a few days. I hope we get some money.
So if you all want to put your questions in the Q&A box, you can do that. Or if you'd like to actually ask Michael a question, just raise your hand and we will unmute your line so that you can ask the question. Whatever's easier for you.
Also,
All the information, whether it's verbal or written, will be captured and included in the Q&A summary that is prepared, similar to every other RITIS user group meeting that we have.
and while we're waiting on folks to type things out, there was another question that I think was meant for Landon earlier that I don't think we've answered yet. Someone wanted to know if the dashboard that he showed was created in Power BI, or if it might have been created in something else.
Mike, this is Landon Perry speaking again. Luis was on the phone. Luis works for our case. Luis was helping us create the actual dashboard. Maybe he can speak on actually what was going on in the background with the creation of the dashboard. Luis Velasquez, are you on the phone? I mean, are you on the call still? He may have had to log off. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna share my contact info for that in the chat. And if that person who asked me that question earlier, if they want to chat offline so we can discuss it, I'll be able to do that as well. So I'm gonna put my email down here so that way they can put it in the chat as well, so that we can contact me afterwards.
Okay, thanks, Landon. I see Dean Bresler has asked a question. In the future, will additional OD analytics be available? Dean, can you expand upon that and talk about what you mean by additional OD analytics?
Dean, I can unmute your line if you'd like. You're unmuted.
Well, he's not unmuted. He's able to unmute himself now.
I'm sorry, you're right, Michael. He's able to unmute.
Now he looks like he's unmuted. Can't hear him though. Oh, now calling in now. He's got to unmute his phone line. Dean, are you there? I'm hearing a Max Headroom style voice, so you're speaking, Dean. We can't hear him. Sorry.
Michael, while the trip analytics tools, while you have both tools, are agencies who have that able to use both, or how does that work?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So if an agency has trip analytics and they started using the older tool, are they able to continue using it even when the new one is deployed until they're merged?
Yes, yeah, we're not getting rid of the old one. It's this is more of a usability thing. There's going to be so many changes in the new version, good changes that add functionality. But we know it's going to be jarring for some folks. So instead of just switching over, we'll have both versions available at the same time.
Michael, there are some comments in the chat box that might be of interest as well while you're waiting.
Oh, okay. So it looks like Russ Holt is looking for any additional types of quick reports to help show executives the value of good or poor traffic incident management. So it looks like he's looking forward to working with you, John, to continue those efforts. All right, so Alexander Finch is saying a long-range congestion analysis tool would be helpful. Something to visualize or export tabular data on vehicle speeds and reliability from 2017, the start of their NRX data, the start of NRX data and NPR is to present day conditions. So kind of looking at trends from 2017 onward, maybe we could about this if he's got any thoughts.
Hi, this is Alex Finch.
Hey, Alex, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we're getting more and more questions about, how did COVID impact our long-term trends on, increases in VMT or congestion. And I was just thinking of a tool that somehow we could display that, maybe have some different aggregation options, because obviously that'd be so much data you wouldn't want to look at very granularly. When I've kind of done these one-off reports, I've aggregated in different ways. Sometimes I want the average value of a certain period on certain days of the week. Other times I'm grabbing, maximum 95th percentile speeds, show how extreme speeding has changed in the state. But when it's a little bit difficult in using the RITIS tools to look at those long-term periods. I've used the performance summary tool some, and the performance charts tool. But when you get on stuff that's beyond a year, it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Okay, yeah, good point. So Alex, what I think we'll do is we'll put you in touch with Mark Franz, who gave the cause of congestion presentation earlier. He kind of leads up our data science team, and we'll get you to speak with him, the data science team, and our UX team that develops user interfaces. And maybe we can brainstorm some potential UI elements and fixes that might get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, that'd be great. I was really interested in his presentation earlier. I'd be happy to talk about that too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. And then Dean is adding some clarification to his earlier question or comment, saying something about that is OD similar to the outputs from the street light data. So I'm not terribly familiar with what street light produces, but our tools will essentially take what data is provided to us from the data providers, and it will essentially just output the O's and D's that are given to us by the data provider. So we're not factoring up to say represent the entire population of an area, but it is the actual observed O's and D's, and you can see the actual routes that individual vehicles and people were taken. So let's actually have a separate conversation with you to see what specific features you're looking for, and we'll see if that's what we're developing, and if it's not, we'll see if we can develop it. Greg Jordan, I don't know if he's on the line or not. Greg Jordan kind of leads up the efforts with the TRIPS analytics tools, and we'll put you in touch with him to have a conversation to figure out what it is you're looking for. So we'll reach out to you after the call. Let's see, what else do we have here? So Bob Fry is chiming in and says he's excited about the version 4 TRIP Analytics, and he's a current TRIPS Analytics user, but he's excited about being able to find a study area. It's going to help him to better quantifying travel, estimating, calibrating trip tables, travel demand modeling, etc. Oh, thank you, Bob. And Russ, John Allen's going to get in touch with you to talk more about your needs. And I think that's all we've got.
Yeah, I think we're about 4 minutes over. So I think Michael, you're our last speaker here. So Joanne, I don't know if we have any closing slides here or any final remarks from Denise, but I will certainly say from my end, thank you everyone as always for attending. Really appreciate the feedback that you provided in the chat and the questions that you've asked. If you if you or your colleagues are interested in joining our RITIS Enhancement User Group, by all means, please reach out to Denise Marco or myself. Additionally, if you have colleagues that are interested in joining this user group, please feel free to forward it along. I believe Joanna is our facilitator of getting people added to our mailing list. So again, please feel free to pass that information along. Thank you all. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Have a
Matt,
great.
thank
Yes.
you. By the way, no one said thank you for doing a great job facilitating today. As always, just a great. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.